Okay guys, so as promised, we'll go over the spec, then we'll go over the rotation, then we will also go over the stats that you should be prioritizing for the Outlaw Rogue. Now, there are a few different talents that you are going to need for different situations. For example, you won't use the same spec in raiding that you will in Mythic Plus, and this is obvious because Mythic Plus you're in multi-target fights most of the time, and in raid a lot of the time you're in single target fights and you need to ramp up that DPS for the single target fights. So the spec I'm currently using is what I would call the best Outlaw spec for Mythic Plus. Now obviously there are some variations for different situations and some people like to use it slightly differently, but this is the one that I use and this is what I find the most helpful and does the most DPS as an overall. So we'll take Quick Draw, which gives half cost use of pistol shot granted by Sinister Strike. It now generates 1 additional combo point, so when you use it you immediately get 2 combo points, and it does 50% additional damage, so it's a really nice little bit of extra DPS when it procs. Acrobatic strikes is so helpful when there's, you know, AoE on the ground and you're having to try and stand away from the boss, but you still need to do loads of damage. Acrobatic strikes allows you to still hit your target from quite far away. Very helpful. Marked for Death is insane in Mythic Plus and just general world content. It basically gives you a free 5 combo points on your target, and the second that target dies, you get the Marked for Death back again. So you can literally recycle this like 5 times in 5 seconds if you get 5 targets that are all just dying one after another, and it can ramp up your DPS like crazy in Mythic Plus. I absolutely love Marked for Death, and it works in stealth, so you can start your fight with a full combo point slice and dice straight away. Cheat Death is obviously so valuable. Fatal attacks instead reduce your health to 7% of your maximum health for 3 seconds afterwards. You take 85% reduced damage. So many times have I just been in a Mythic Plus and I've made a mistake and I've stood in some AoE, I've stood in a spell, and it's one shot most of the DPS, and then all I see is a little Cheat Death sign above my head saying, "Oh yes, you've just cheated death, you scrub." Cheat Death is so helpful and definitely worth taking. This is where you might see a little bit of variation between different rogues, different horses for different courses, so to speak. Prey on the Weak is what I take, and enemies disabled by Cheap Shot or Kidney Shot take an additional 10% increased damage from all sources for 6 seconds. Or you can take Dirty Tricks, which is Cheap Shot and Gouge, and Sap no longer costs energy. It's really dependent on what you are after. I'm not really too fussed about energy because I always have adrenaline rush, and I just find I always have enough energy either way. I'm just blasting out moves constantly, so what's the harm really? I prefer this because, you know, it helps my group. If we really need to get a target down, I can Kidney Shot it, and they'll take an additional load of DPS there. I'm always on Discord, so I can always tell them, I'm going to Kidney Shot this guy, focus on them for a second, and usually they can blast them down really easily. As for the level 45 talents, I would take Alacrity. This just gives your finishing move a 20% chance to grant you 2% haste for 20 seconds, stacking it up to 5 times, which is crazy. That haste is so helpful to us Outlaw Rogues, and the reason for that is the majority of damage is coming from melee damage. So it's just your typical weapon damage, so haste is so helpful for you, and taking Alacrity can really help with that. Now Bladerush is so good in most situations, to be honest, especially the Mythic Plus situations. The Mythic Plus situations are absolutely disgusting with Bladerush. As long as you've got your Bladeflurry active, it does basically 100% increased damage to non-primary targets. You can charge it, so basically if you're in a sticky situation, you suddenly need to go over here, or you're going to get hit by a buff, you can even use it just to move you really quickly. So it's not only a damaging move, but it's also a quick way to move across the map. If you have used all your mobility already. Now that's what I would use for, you know, Mythic Plus. and just typical world content and typical world content. However, if I were to go into raids like I typically do, I would take Ghostly Strike here. Ghostly Strike is just, it's a must need, really. Use Ghostly Strike if you need it. I put that there. And basically this will just give you an additional 10% increased damage for 10 seconds. It's basically almost like a second between the eyes. I think of it. I know between the eyes is a combo finisher, but it just gives you an additional load of damage. And for the single target fights, that can be so gosh darn helpful. Just keep cycling, always keep it up. Now, as for rotation, I'm just going to do the Mythic Plus rotation right now. It's really simple, but there's a little bit to do before you actually get into the fight. Now, at the start of the fight, you really want to have focused a tank. So whatever tank it is in the group, you just need to set focus as that tank. Then you want to have a macro called Tricks. And this Tricks of the Trade macro will basically use your Tricks of the Trade on your focused target. So that will give you all your threat that you generate for, I believe, is 5 seconds, 6 seconds. All the threat you generate for 6 seconds will go straight to that target, and therefore you can do the full amount of DPS that you want to at the start of the fight, and you don't have to worry about suddenly taking a few damaging shots from all the mobs around you. It's a really good way of just ensuring that the tank gets that immediately. It's a really good way of making sure the tank gets that immediate threat that they need on the target. Once you've used your Tricks of the Trade, it's all about the DPS. So here we go. You want to be opening with, I'd say about 1 second before the pull. You want to use your Roll of the Bones, and that is so helpful to start the fight with that. And the reason we're using that just before we open up is because we're actually going to use a finishing move before we even leave stealth. And using it after we've used Roll the Bones will effectively make sure that Restless Blades will come into effect. It will reduce the cooldown of Roll the Bones, and it will also reduce the cooldown of Marked for Death. So that's what we're going to do right now. So the rotation would be to use your Tricks of the Trade, then we'll actually do this right now, then use the Roll of the Bones, then use Mark for Death and a full combo point Slice and Dice, then open with Ambush. Okay, so we'll do that right now, just so you guys can kind of see exactly what I'm doing here. So assume I've used Tricks of the Trade, Roll the Bones, Marked for Death, Tricks, Slice and Dice, Ambush, open. And at this point you would use, there we go. So just to go over that again, really simple. And I'll make sure that this is written up so you guys can see exactly the rotation to roll with. In stealth, you will use Roll the Bones a second before the fight is pulled, use your Tricks of Trade, Roll the Bones, then Marked for Death, full combo point Slice and Dice. Do that again. So, Roll the Bones, full combo point Slice and Dice, open with Ambush, straight away go into Adrenaline Rush at this point. Okay, so when the fight is opened and you've done your ambush, you want to go straight into using Adrenaline Rush. Now, I've got a macro for my Adrenaline Rush because it also uses a trinket that I've got, which is my Inscrutable Quantum Device. It's very helpful to have that available for me. This obviously says use, question mark, question mark, question mark. It basically gives me different stats based on the situation. So if I'm low on health, it will give me health. If I've got top health, it will give me the best stat for that situation. It's a very useful trinket to use, and you can get it from the other side. Okay, so once we've opened the fight with Ambush, we will use Adrenaline Rush and then just rotate between using Sinister Strike, Pistol Shot whenever it procs, and then keep Between the Eyes up immediately. We really need Between the Eyes up straight away just to get that increased damage on, and then we just literally are getting to 5 combo points using Dispatch and constantly using Bladerush and Sepsis. Just the second they're off cooldown, use them. The Outlaw Rogue just wants to absolutely smash every cooldown they can at every possible situation. Make sure that when you're using Bladerush, you have popped your Bladeflurry beforehand so that you can take full advantage of that 100% increased damage to non-primary targets. Okay, so this box just here will display all of the abilities that I use in order, and that way you can see and immediately my rotation. And just like that, you can see we got ourselves up to 6k DPS, just simply following a very basic rotation. Rotation, just to go over it one last time, is in stealth, use Tricksy Trade, then straight into Roll of the Bones, a second before the fight is pulled. Then use your Marked for Death for a full combo point, Slice and Dice. Second Slice and Dice is used, open with Ambush. At that point, you can just rotate between using Bladerush, your Sepsis, make sure Bladeflurry is always active. Immediately press your Adrenaline Rush the second that fight is opened and you've used your ambush, get that Adrenaline Rush out. If you're using the same legendary that I am, which is Celerity, then you will do an additional 8% damage whenever you have used Adrenaline Rush, which is so helpful. At that point, get yourself a Between the Eyes on immediately, and that will just mean the target will take a lot more damage from you. It will increase your chance to critical strike as well. And always just keep Roller Bones up. Every chance you get, use Roller Bones. And it's just about balancing your cooldowns at that point. Just using them every chance that you can. In terms of stats to prioritize, at the moment my stats aren't really good because I've just been kind of using the highest item level pieces I can find. But really, what you want to be focusing on is your haste as an Outlaw Rogue. Haste as an Outlaw Rogue is absolutely vital because it increases your attack speed and your energy regeneration. At the moment, I've got a lot of mastery, and that's just purely because Blizzard has decided to give me loads of mastery on all the items I'm getting. I am hoping to maximize my haste in the future, and as I get to those really high mythics, I'll start to look at a bit more versatility to go with that. But for now, haste is really, really important to be focusing on for your rogues. In terms of if you are looking for a rotation for raiding, it's very simple. It's exactly what we just used a second ago, but you're using Ghostly Strike as well, and you're just keeping that up at all times. It's not very different or complicated. Just keep it up at all times. Now, as your rogue, if you get into a tricky situation, immediately pop your Evasion and your Crimson Vial and Cloak of Shadows. Obviously, depending on the situation, don't use your Cloak of Shadows if it's just physical damage. If it's magic damage, though, use Cloak of Shadows, vice versa. If you're on Discord with people and you've got a healer in the Discord, always ask the healer just to give you a shout out if they've run out of mana or if they can't heal you, and that way you know to use your defensive cooldowns. That's all I have to say today, guys, in terms of just a rogue guide for Outlaw DPS. I find that I out DPS a lot of players in Mythic Plus, and it's a really good way of just playing the rogue. You don't always have to play as subtlety. Stick to what you know, and I've always been an outlaw / combat rogue, and that's what I enjoy most. It's fun just using big-ass axes, or big-ass maces, or big-ass swords, and just go in there and smash, smash, bash, bash, cut, cut. Alright guys, thanks for watching. This is Erosium out, and I will see you next time.